In this problem, we're asked to factor 3x squared equals 4x plus 7. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get all of them on one side. The lazy student says, I'll just make one move and move this to the right side. If you think ahead, just like chess, I don't want that because my a value will be negative. So I'm going to have to do a little bit more work. I'm going to move both of these to the left side. Doing opposites to move them across the equal sign. I'm left with 3x squared minus 4x minus 7 equals 0. To start the problem, now I have a quadratic in standard form. Everyone say standard form? Every function family usually has a standard form. Standard form for quadratics looks like this. It has the a, b, and c in there. Class, what's our a value? It's the number in front. A is equal to 3. B is negative 4. And the c value is negative 7. They're all numbers. You will never have an x or an x squared there. Now I'm going to teach you a method of factoring. If you don't like my method, that's okay, but we should get the same answer. I'm going to use something called x box. Now you kind of have to choose. You'll either choose to use the method you learned previously, which is fine, and you have to keep getting the same answers, or you abandon your ways and you follow just x box. In this x in the box, you will multiply a times c. Class, what is a times c? Negative 21. In the bottom of the x, you will put the letter b, and my b value is what? Negative 4. I need to think of two numbers that will multiply to be negative 21, but the same two numbers will add to be negative 4. Now before you guys say those numbers, I want to show you a strategy when the numbers get more difficult. The strategy is writing out all the factors of positive 21 and write them bigger number on the left side. What are the other numbers, class? And right now I'm not going to focus on the positive and negatives. 7 and 3. The reason why I do that is so that you can kind of go across and subtract to see if you can get the 4. Well, I know that it's not going to be 21 and 1, it's going to be 7 and 3. Which one of these numbers will be positive, class? And the 7 will be negative. Let's put those two numbers now into the box. You will always put the red in the bottom left and the top right. Always. And you're going to add an x variable. Basically what this has done in the problem is it's basically split negative 4x to be a negative 7x plus a 3x. The next thing to do is you're going to always put the first term in the top left. Everyone say top left. Let's put 3x squared in the top left. Everyone say bottom right. The c value will always go into the bottom right. Now, I'm going to find the greatest common factor of each of the rows and columns. Class, what's the greatest common factor here? We can pull out an x. How about this row? That's a 3x. And if you're not sure, because you're using pencil, you can always multiply to check. Class, what's 3x times x? 3x squared. How about this row? What do they have in common? They have a 1 in common. And this is how you can check. 1 times 3x equals 3x. X times something equals negative 7x. Negative 7. And negative 7 times 1 equals negative 7. So negative 7 is your greatest common factor. These are our answers. Now it doesn't matter how you put the order of the yellow. My answer is 3x minus 7, x plus 1. Again, you can change the orders of those. Does not matter. But this is my answer for factor. If I factor, your answer is the parentheses. Everyone say parentheses. But if I change it, okay, pay attention. If I say solve this, solving implies that x is by itself. Your answer should be x equals. So, to solve a quadratic, let's copy down what we just have over here. And let's do this conceptually. I have a triangle times a square, and it equals the number 0. If I multiply the two shapes, and let's just say the shapes represent numbers. If their product, or multiplying, equals 0, that implies that one of these has to be 0. Now, if this triangle is a 0, 0 times the square equals 0. If the square was 0, 0 times the triangle, this would equal 0. They call this the 0 product rule. What does that mean? You're going to take each of the binomials, the parentheses, and set it equal to 0. And now we're going to solve. I'm going to add 7. And divide by 3. X is equal to 7/3. Solve it on this side. X equals -1. My two solutions are x equals 7/3 and x equals -1. Now, unlike linear equations, this is a linear equation to the power of 1. There's only one solution. We'll learn later on that the fundamental theorem of algebra tells us that in quadratics you have at most two solutions, 2, 1, or 0. Let's graph this by hand, and then we'll show you how to graph with a calculator. And this graph will kind of give you a conceptual why do we do this? Alright, x equals 7/3 and x equals -1. You can think of that on the x number line, the x-axis. I have -1, and 7/3 is what? 2 1/3? So 2.333, so something like right there. Now I can predict the midpoint. Shouldn't predict, but we'll just do it for now. Maybe something like this. So our parabola should be something on this orange line. I found it by using the midpoint. We'll find that algebraically more concretely later. Here are some other clues. In the quadratic equation, if I make x equals 0, then my y-intercept is -7, just like slope-intercept form. Does that make sense? It's just the constant. So that would be -7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So and a common mistake when graphing, students think that this is the lowest point or the minimum. It's not, okay? Because I know that the lowest point or the highest point must be on the orange line, so you can just kind of sketch it. It's a U. And we've just graphed a parabola. Everyone say that? Let's highlight some things about our parabola. It's the name of the graph of a quadratic function. Our x, this is -1, right there, right? And this is 7/3. There are some names for these. I called it an x-intercept. Anyone else know any other names? Zeros. Anything else? They call these roots. Any others? Forgetting one. Oh, solutions. So 4 synonyms, 4 different names that mean the same thing where it crosses the x-axis. And then that green, I forgot to label, was -7. So when the big picture idea is this. When I give you a quadratic equation, we use factoring. And once I factor it, then I can solve. When I solve, it gives me these 2 points on the x-axis. So when you're solving a quadratic equation, you're kind of knowing where it crosses the x-axis. Let me now clarify the difference between factoring and solving. Factoring, you get parentheses. Solving, you get x equals 2. The common mistake on your next quiz or test, students, I will say, factor. And they write this as your answer. Class, do you see any parentheses there? That would be incorrect. They solved it. If I say solve, and they write this, that means they're just missing one more step, the zero product rule. Alright, go ahead and turn on your calculator. I'm going to click on y equals. Press clear. And now I'm going to type in the second equation. The original one said 3x squared equals 4x plus 7. But when we got into standard form, 3x squared, so 3, here's my shortcut for x squared. I'm just going to type in the variable button twice. Right there. Minus, do not use the negative button, this button will be incorrect. Minus 4x minus 7. So this reads 3x squared minus 4x minus 7. And now I'm going to press zoom. Everyone say zoom. And you have a bunch of options. The easiest one is number 6. Everyone say number 6. So you can either scroll down or just put in the number 6. And zoom 6, standard 6, basically says you have an x value of -10 to +10 and -10 to +10. Raise your hand if you're able to get that on your screen. I'll try to help you later. Everyone say trace. Now if you put trace, mine so happened to go onto the y-intercept. That's the -7, right? And if you move left and right, it's basically telling you where all the solutions are, generically. Now if you go towards the x-axis, towards our x-intercept, our roots, our zeros, our solutions, you'll notice that it's very hard to get a y value to equal 0. Try that. What does that mean? Well, that means that this is pretty much 0, and our answer is approximately around 2.3. We found the improper fraction of 7/3. And you can go on the other side and do the same thing. Try to get y equals 0, close as possible. We already know that the exact answer is x equals -1. Well, our calculator actually has the technology to actually find the answer for us. Everyone say second. Everyone say trace. Here it gives us a bunch of options, but I'm going to click on 0. Number 2, you could just press 2 or go scroll down, press enter. It's going to ask you a series of questions. Now if your blinker, clicker, whatever is on the right side, that's okay. But this is what it means to be left bound. Whatever point you're trying to pick, you go to the little bit to the left, press enter. Yours will have a line, yes? Like a red or blue line. And then you're going to go a little bit to the right of this point and press enter. And then it's going to ask you to guess. So try to get it exact. On the screen, you'll know you did this correctly when it says the word 0. And it has x equals -1 and y value equals 0. Raise your hand if you're able to get that on the screen.
I love math. You don't love math? What's wrong with you?